Come with me and you will see all the things that we find in the trash. It's garbage picking time!
Oh my gosh, that looks like the bones to the Tyrannosaurus Rex at the Carnegie Museum. We got our first coat of primer on the bars. I didn't film that, but paint's paint, right? I just use basic spray paint. And I'm going to flip them over to the other side. I was going to hang them all from a wire, but it's too much of a pain in the ass to get all this stuck on the wire. I used paint remover on this, and it was having trouble biting into the really strong and super strong paint. So this part here I'm just scraping. It's coming off rather easy. So I'm just getting the loose paint off. I'm not worried so much to get this down to bare metal. This original paint that's on here is pretty damn rugged. So we're just gonna scrape off the loose paint, prime it, and we still got a lot of work ahead of us. So I'm just kind of getting that done now. 10 years. So I got these all painted up. What do you call these? I was calling this the skeleton of the glider. That came out pretty nice. You can see that's the color we're choosing there. It's like a light blue. I kind of changed my mind from yellow because I really didn't like the yellow that Rust-Oleum had in stock. They probably have a different color yellow. You can get online maybe, but my local hardware store didn't have the right yellow. They had like this really super orangey kind of yellow. I wanted like a light yellow. So I went with the original color that my mother wanted and not so much the yellow, I guess, that the original color was. But they're coming out pretty nice. And I'm just using Rust-Oleum spray paint. It's 2 times ultra coverage. It was on sale. So I said, what the heck. But I did want to make sure that I was using an enamel, which is what this is. Yeah, don't want to use latex. Definitely for something that's outside. So this is pretty good, I guess. Oh, also bonds the plastic. But put a couple coats of primer on there and a lot of coats of this stuff. I think I used a full can to do all of that. I think I did probably like 4 coats, but not heavy. Definitely start out with light coats and kind of work your way up. But anyways, those are still drying, and both sides are done. And now let's switch gears and look at the 2 side armrests. So I had these soaking in that solution. As you can see, I didn't wash them with water or anything yet. I'm just going to try to do a little bit of scraping on her just to see what we got.
Oh, for crying out loud, let's speed this up. I'm not going to watch him scrape this all day. He's gonna have arms like Popeye the Sailor Man before this is all done.
Making decent progress here. Just a lot of scraping. This is actually coming off really easy. What I'm using here is a wood, I don't know what this, like a wood carving knife type of thing, or wood chisel, and that's pretty sharp, and it pretty much makes quick work. Got this cleaned up rather nicely. We'll wash this, and I'm going to get some wire, and I'm also going to hammer these flat because there's some bulges. You see it's not straight. Now these still look pretty bad. I do have to mention this. I had not used steel wool on this yet. These had been soaked in that solution. The rust will just be sitting on the surface. It's not actually adhered to the metal anymore. Once I run some steel wool over it, all that rust will come off, which is what I'm doing here. part of that whole electrolysis process is that rust is removed, and you have to actually like scrub it clean when that's finished. Gunting Glider Company, Philadelphia, PA. Look at that. You can see it right there, but it says Gunting or Bunting. Bunting Glider Company, Philadelphia, PA. Huh. Isn't that cool?
The history of these old metal porch gliders go back many years. A large number of vintage porch gliders were manufactured by the J.R. Bunting Glider Company of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Mr. Bunting, shall I say, started his business in 1827 as a mattress manufacturer and manufacturer of cabinets. He made these beautifully cushioned and metal porch gliders of the era, and he made them with such quality, made in the USA even. How rare is that?
You want to get this dry quickly. Don't put it in the sun. Sun will accelerate rust. Just air dry it. Now we gotta clean up our mess. Don't vacuum that. Sweep it. All that lead shit gets in your vacuum, and then it gets in the air. Sweep it up. Plastic bag it. So I started the leading process. I didn't film the first one. They have these like pit holes. Oh shoot! The camera falls down. They have these pit holes and stuff. I didn't want to use Bondo, and I didn't want to just weld in new metal. These holes are a little bigger, so we'll see here, but I didn't want to like weld in new metal. It's a lot of for sheet metal, and to save myself a little work, I bought sticks of lead off of Amazon Prime. Oh, and I'm just using old school lead. Yeah, not earth friendly. You know how that goes, right? And as you can see, I filled these holes in with lead. You can see there. And the difference between lead and Bondo is lead will move with the metal. If you start flexing this metal with Bondo, the Bondo will crack. This is a glider. It's going to wobble, you know, and I just feel that the Bondo would crack. So I figure I'll use lead instead. And you can see there. So I patched holes there, and I patched holes down there at the bottom, as you can see. With lead, and it worked out pretty good, so I like that, and I'm going to continue to try to use lead to patch up all these like little pinholes and stuff, but you got to clean them really good. You got to get the iron oxide off there and everything, so I had to sand these down so they were shiny to get that lead to stick. Just gotta do some more lead work on this. Plug up these holes. I already just ground them out with the grinder. So I got a nice clean surface or clean metal to go to. Somebody told me to get this tinning butter from Eastwood. So I got a tub of tinning butter, and we'll spread it along here, and that's supposed to tin this, so it makes the soldering a lot easier. So I'm going to try that.
Oh my gosh, that looks like the stuff I put on my sandwich, like peanut butter.
The whole purpose of this, I call it tinning butter. The whole purpose of this is to tin the metal. That way you can get the solder to flow onto it. So all this paste is doing is not filling any holes. I'm just tinning all the metal. It's kind of like pre-soaking in a way, so that when I get the bar of solder, it will adhere to the metal. Now, this is the first time I was working with this stuff, so you know, I'm kind of just trial and error. I'm not wearing any gloves, or probably any other personal protection equipment. Maybe you should wear gloves. I used to work a lot with solder and in the electronics industry, and I handled a lot of hot circuit boards. So I've developed a very high tolerance to heat. So using this torch and being so close to the flame and putting this rag real close, it is really hot, but it doesn't bother me. And I didn't actually even burn myself one time doing this. It's just being quick, being careful, and you know, I recommend using gloves if you're going to do this. That worked rather nicely. It's nice and tinned. Now this does take a little bit of trial and error. I kind of kept goofing up this one spot because that hole was pretty big, and you just kind of have to get the feel for it. You get the paste sort of like in this placid state, but you have to actually be able to get the flow. But if you get it too hot, then it just spills right through the holes. So you have a little fine dance of flame, and just to get the temperature right. And you can see I kind of left that hole. I was going to say, you know what, that hole's pretty big. I'm going to come back to that later because it's going to be a harder fill. I'll get maybe my block of wood to work that in, as you can see. And I'm just kind of flattening that solder so I don't have to grind it, or not sorry, grind it, but file it as much. So I'm just kind of pushing it into place. And then once I push it into place, I'm actually reheating it so it then melts into place, but not heating it so much that it falls through the hole. That's kind of what was really hard about this, is getting it not to fall through the hole. And if I had to do this again, I would probably put something on the other side of this metal. I had a lot of stalactites. You know, stalactites hang tight from the ceiling. Stalagmites might make it to the ceiling. I had a lot of stalactites that I had to later grind off. And but all in all, this turned out pretty well.
I think you're getting a bit carried away with that campfire music. It sounds more like a western or something. What do you think you're making here anyways? An old-style campfire bean pot?
Yeah, I'm just continuing to patch holes. I mean, they were everywhere. This is on the other side. So, you know, I'm just showing some more of this. I'll later file this and get it, you know, relatively smooth. Alright, time to smooth this out. Here I'm using a file. You're not really supposed to use sandpaper on lead, I guess, because you would create too many dust particles. So you use a file, it creates chunks of lead, which you see is just falling down. And we could easily sweep up and clean up later. Alright, so we got these holes patched. Pretty smooth. For these edges here, we'll use a little bit of filler, but that's just to cover the groove. So these holes are fixed. So it worked out pretty well. Let's see, there's a top section there. Beautiful. Now I know I said I wasn't going to use Bondo, but I meant Bondo to patch the holes. But I will use some of this Bondo filler to smooth out the transition between the metal and the lead, so you can't see the joint, or the transition from the lead to the steel, because there'll be a little bit of a bump there, and I had to actually, I built up the metal a little bit so it wasn't completely flush. So there is, I left some lead there to have a little bit more strength. So I just use this Bondo to smooth the transition over, and it'll look pretty cool when I'm done with this.
Smooth it out. Oh, holes.
Hey, when you're done with that, why don't you try spackling the walls of my house? They're all lumpy. Okay, we did it. So there's a lot of sanding involved in this. How about we speed this up so it's not like some 40-part video series all replace this. We're fixing up this glider.
I don't know what you're going to say. Why aren't you block sanding this? Well, I thought about block sanding it, and I was like, you know what? I just want to get this done quick. I'm not looking for perfect, and I've done body work on cars for long enough that, I could get it pretty dang close with just hand sanding it and just feeling. You can see how, I'm running my hand around, I'm feeling for lumps and bumps, and I'm sanding them out. I found a little bump there, so I tapped it flat. So, I don't really need to block sand this. It doesn't need to be perfect because there's other parts of the glider that aren't perfect. So if the whole thing's kind of lumpy and bumpy, well, hey, it's vintage. Alright, time to prime this baby. Now, I had already sprayed some of that that Loctite stuff on here, the rust converter, so if there was any rust left, it would be converted over. And I'm just going to lightly spray the first coat of primer on here to get ready for paint. Woohoo! Almost there, almost there.
Wow, this is almost exciting as watching paint dry.
Now, I did about 2 coats of primer. I waited about a half hour to an hour between coats. Just want to check it to make sure it's completely dry. You got to wait a little bit longer for the primer to dry. But anyways, and I'm using the Rust-Oleum, same brand. That way they don't react.
Oh, would you look at that? He finally hung that metal up like a piece of meat. Kinda like that movie, that Rocky movie. Any minute I expect him to start punching it. Like he was gonna fight Apollo Creed. Why, that looks like the new color paint they used on the Ambridge Bridge.
And now we're all ready for paint. This was actually like about 3 or 4 days later. I had this hanging up, and then I finally went ahead and started painting this with the blue. So here we go. Got my little organic respirator on there, or whatever, paint fume cleaner upper. So hey, I do wear PPE every once in a while. And just I don't know how boring this is, and is it more boring than watching paint dry? I would like my counterpart had said, so I don't know. But yeah, we're just starting to paint, and we'll probably speed this up just to make time go a little bit faster. If you notice on the bottom there of that arm piece, it's kind of all bent up and bumpy right there. That's actually where that metal's going to mount, and I'm going to bolt that. Those I guess I call them dinosaur bones. That's where that bolts up. So that's going to be covered up. You won't see it. So therefore, I wasn't going to put a lot of time in smoothing out something you'll never see. So that's why you see that there at the bottom of that one piece. Well, I think we'll pause here and wait for the paint to dry. These turned out really well, a lot better than I thought. And hey, he's making some progress here. I think we're about halfway through here. While I was waiting for the paint to dry, I went ahead and wire brushed the glider frame that supports the glider chair, and just primed and painted it. I didn't actually film any of this part. It was actually really straightforward. And we are just making progress here. You can see what that looks like in the final paint right there. And hey, stay tuned and please subscribe for more exciting glider adventures.